From your July essay on trade, you fold it right into a blistering discourse on the elections. And Joe, what's so important about your discourse, yeah, it's about Trump, yeah, it's about the Republicans, but it's really about the Democrat Party that you identify with. It's a breath of fresh air because we really haven't seen that. What's the Democrat Party getting right as they move to these elections?
Well, I think they're realizing that they have to have more than an anti-Trump position. They have to have a positive position to understand why the country hasn't been performing very well, why there is such inequality. It has partly to do with market power, monopoly power. It's partly that we haven't done enough to protect those who have been so badly affected by deindustrialization. It's not really what others have done to us. It's not immigration. It's not trade. It's really our failure to address the problems of the transformation to a modern economy.
Turnout. You nail it in your essay about the lack of turnout for voting presidential elections 2020 and particularly off-year elections as well. How did the Democrats get the troops out? Did they go back to our childhoods where you literally went door to door?
That's one of the things that, there are new ways of reaching people through social media, but it is getting people out to vote. And we have a, wide spectrum. Young people don't vote. A lot of the old people don't vote. So you have to reach different parts of the constituency in different ways.
Another thing you touch on is the generational shift in the Democrat Party. I guess we've seen some form of shift in the Republican Party to the success of President Trump. How do the Democrats affect a generational change in the coming months, actually 22 days, and then on to 2020? How do they affect that shift?
Well, we saw this in the previous election, the young people, the enthusiasm for Bernie Sanders. We've seen that in some of the primaries already this year, that young people, I see it at Columbia, where I teach, the enthusiasm that they have for candidates that have a positive agenda.
Memo to Joe Stiglitz: Columbia is not representative of America. Okay, Morningside Heights.
Bernie all through.
Oh, come on. Bernie Sanders is doing great in Morningside Heights, and you saw it with historic elections here, the Bronx, and wherever. How does the Democratic Party regain Wisconsin? How do they regain a suburb 72 miles outside your Gary, Indiana? How do they do that? Did they do it with Speaker Pelosi? Do they do it with Clinton Redux? Or do they have to go to something new?
I think they have to go to something new. I mean, I think it's clear that people are looking, they talk about looking for something authentic.
Well, the real alternative. What's the real alternative that you wrote about?
The real alternative is a progressive agenda that, in a way, is going back to the middle-class lifestyle that we had in the middle of the last century, but it's going to be a different way of achieving that. You're not going to have the old-style manufacturing jobs of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. You're going to have a new innovation economy, and that's going to require a different role for government in providing for old age, for providing for health care, for providing for education.
And yet the Republicans do so well. And yet the Republicans get a turnout. The president had, granted he's going to the base. I get that. He'll be in Florida with this terrible hurricane, and he'll, play to the base in the coming 22 days to this election. How does the Democrats get beyond a progressive base that went down in flames in 2016?
I think part of the story is to explain how the blaming others, immigration, trade, is not going to be the solution. Trade war, it's going to cost us in our agriculture areas, it's going to cost us in our industrial areas, and it's not going to be helping in our more dynamic areas, whether it's Silicon Valley or New York.
How do you respond, and I say this, Joe, with great respect for you and Mr. Samuelson coming from Gary at another time in place, how do you respond to the president when he talks about your party, your politics, is the mob?
we know he's very ugly in the way he articulates, expresses his disdain. I think the Democrats have to respond positively. I think the country is fed up with that kind of ugliness that has characterized Trump and those who are with him, and they want a positive story, not the kind of fight with everybody around you, but a view of hope of what we can do, and I really think that these are things we can do. We are much wealthier now than we were 75 years ago, and yet we seem to be telling the Americans we can't have the lifestyle that we had 75 years ago. That's nonsense. The reason we can't is because all the gains that we've had over the last 40 years have gone to a very few people at the top. If we shared more, all of us would be able to get back to that middle-class lifestyle that everybody aspires to.
Professor, we're running out of time, but I want to address the phrase "you own," which is our discontent. Seems like everybody I know is stealing the phrase. You get a royalty on that. Anytime anybody says discontent, except Faulkner, you get a royalty. The globalization, our discontents of 16 years ago, 2002. How do the discontented act in 22 days to begin to regain the ground? I mean, a simple thing is they got a turnout, but do you see that turnout occurring?
Yes, I do. But you are absolutely right. The whole issue is turnout. And I think what I've seen, and young people, not only in Columbia, but in universities I've visited elsewhere around the country, they're beginning to grasp that their future is at stake. The future of our country is at stake. And we're at this pivotal moment that if they don't take these actions, the country will have gone off in a particular direction, and it's going to be harder and harder to bring it back.
So I behaved myself. We got through this interview, folks, without me bringing up Paul Romer, so you would trash on Paul Romer. You can't do that to a newly minted Nobel Prize winner. Joe Stiglitz with us, Vonnie, of course, the laureate of Columbia.
Tom, before you go, I have to ask you to get the professor's thoughts on Elizabeth Warren and whether she's running and what kind of campaign she would.
Yeah, Vonnie, thank you so much. She has to go out and do a DNA like Ancestry.com thing to say she's partial Indian from a zillion. Are you partial Native American?
No, I don't think so.
But then we see Senator Warren seriously considering 2020. Is she too far to the left to win?
No, I don't think she is.
She can win.
I think she can. I think she can win. I think she has a very clear message about where some of the problems are, where the financial sector has let us down, where we need regulation in order to have our society function. We don't want a polluted world. We want to be able to drink our water, to breathe our air, and if we go the direction in which the current administration is going, we won't be able to do that.